They say that after driving a cab, or these days, driving for the apps like Uber or Lyft, for 40 years, you become invisible. You're just part of the scenery. The chair, the steering wheel, the divider, the GPS voice, and then me. I don't mind it much. Invisibility is a cloak, and sometimes a cloak is what you need to see the world clearly. I've seen things, heard things, and carried burdens in my back seat that could sink a battleship. Late nights are the worst, or maybe the best, depending on what kind of historian you want to be. I'm certainly a historian of human folly and fragile hope. This story, though, this one started on a Tuesday, not late at night, but right when the sun was trying to claw its way out of the late afternoon muck, around 4:30 p.m. The traffic was already setting up its daily siege on the city. I was idling near the financial district, near those huge glass towers that look like they're trying to pierce the heavens, but mostly just reflect other equally tall, self-important buildings. I hit accept on a ride request. Pickup, 1211 Broad Street. Destination, a residential area across the river, quiet and manicured. A 30-minute trip, if the traffic gods were kind. They rarely are. A young man, I'd guess late 20s, maybe 30, emerged from the revolving doors of the tower. He was dressed in what looked like a $1,000 suit, charcoal grey, perfectly tailored. Everything about him screamed success. The sharp cut of his hair, the expensive leather briefcase, the quick, confident way he strode towards my beat-up sedan. He opened the back door without hesitation, threw his briefcase onto the seat beside him and settled in. He didn't check the license plate or the name on the app, just pure, entitled assurance that this car, and the old man driving it, were there solely for his convenience. I liked that he was prompt, though. Punctuality is a dying art. I pulled away from the curb slowly, easing into the bumper-to-bumper rhythm. The silence was thick, the kind you could almost taste like old dust. I glanced in the rearview mirror, as I always do. It's part of the job. You gauge the mood, the potential trouble, the sobriety. He wasn't on his phone. He wasn't looking out the window. He was just staring straight ahead at the back of my headrest, a tiny, almost imperceptible frown etched between his brows. He looked intense, preoccupied. Maybe a bad day at the office, a deal gone sour. That's usually the story. Then the silence broke. His voice was low, smooth, and utterly devoid of inflection. "You don't remember me, do you?" I kept my eyes on the road. The question was unsettling. It wasn't accusatory, but it wasn't friendly either. It was a statement framed as a question, designed to put me on the defensive. I've had strangers recognize me from years ago, a ride I gave when I was driving a checker cab, a quick chat we had about the Mets, but his face didn't ring any bells. He looked like every other well-to-do young banker I picked up in that neighborhood. "I drive hundreds of people a week, son," I replied, my own voice a dry rasp, the kind you get from breathing recycled air and talking mostly to yourself for 40 years. "I apologize. My memory isn't what it used to be." I tried to inject a touch of light-hearted apology into the response to deflect the strange tension he was building. He gave a short, humorless chuckle. "No, I didn't think you would. You wouldn't have any reason to." He leaned forward slightly, and I could feel his gaze intensify in the mirror. It felt like a physical pressure, pressing against the back of my skull. This wasn't small talk anymore. My hand tightened on the steering wheel. That familiar knot started to form in my stomach, the one that tells you a routine ride is about to turn into something else, something personal and heavy. The emotional needle was starting to twitch. "It was a long time ago. 10 years, he continued, his tone turning reflective, almost philosophical. "I was just a kid, a bad kid, doing something really stupid." This was a standard setup for a confession. 99% of the time, it's a drunk anecdote, a story about a ridiculous bachelor party, or an overblown tale of a night spent in the gutter. But the precision of his memory, 10 years, and the gravity in his voice made me hesitate. I gripped the wheel harder. I needed more information to process this mounting internal anxiety. The city was a blur of steel and glass rushing past us, but my focus narrowed down to the reflection of this man in my small rearview mirror. "Son, if you want to tell me, I'm listening." "That's what I do. I'm just an old driver," I offered, trying to sound calm, like the neutral, invisible ear he seemed to need. He sighed. a deep, heavy sound that seemed too large for his lean frame. It was after a high school football game. My friends and we were celebrating. Too much celebrating, you understand. We broke some things. Vandalized a park bench, I think. Juvenile stuff, but we were scared stiff when the police showed up. My mind raced through the countless young men I'd ferried who were running from bad decisions, hangovers, or even the law. None of it stood out. Nothing. I don't recall truly, I insisted, easing us through a yellow light that was determined to turn red. No, you wouldn't remember me, he corrected, emphasizing the pronoun. But you remember the incident. You picked me up blocks away from the stadium. I was shaking. You saved my skin. I frowned. Saved his skin? I didn't save people. I drove them. I remember a lot of shaking kids running from things, I murmured. He paused, then delivered the line that hit me like a physical blow, forcing my foot to instinctively slam the brake pedal. The car lurched, causing his briefcase to slide forward with a thump. A chorus of angry horns immediately erupted behind us. My name is Ethan Vance, he said, the name hanging in the stale air of the car, cold and heavy. And that night I was running because I had just helped steal your wife's purse and jewelry. I still remember the look on her face when she saw us. The horns blared behind us, a cacophony of modern impatience, but they faded to a dull, distant buzz. My heart was pounding, a frantic, heavy rhythm against my ribs. I had actually slammed the brakes. It wasn't a deliberate act. It was a pure autonomic shutdown, like a circuit breaker tripping. The car had stopped in the middle of traffic. My coffee thermos, thankfully capped, rattled in the cup holder. Ethan Vance, the name. The sound of it, the specific configuration of the consonants and vowels, struck me with the force of 10 years of suppressed anger and silent, festering pain. It was a name I hadn't spoken aloud in a decade, but it lived in the dark corners of my memory, catalogued under the heading of the night everything changed. It wasn't just a purse. It was the night Eleanor, my wife, realized the world wasn't a kind place, and that realization, more than the material loss, had hollowed her out. And now, 10 years later, one of the perpetrators was sitting 5 feet behind me, tailored suit and all. The emotional needle didn't just twitch, it violently spiked. I slowly released the brake, my foot trembling. I moved the car cautiously forward, pulling slightly to the right to let the furious stream of vehicles bypass us. My hands were slick on the steering wheel, and I could feel the blood draining from my face. I hadn't realized I was holding my breath until I let out a slow, ragged gasp. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. I kept my gaze fixed on the endless stream of red tail lights ahead, but all I truly saw was the ghost of that night. The broken glass on the sidewalk, Eleanor's frantic, tearful call to the police, the sickening knowledge that the small, sentimental keepsakes, the locket from her mother, the wedding band she wore when she couldn't wear the diamond, were gone forever. Why? I finally managed, the single word emerging as a low, guttural croak. It wasn't, "Why did you do it?" It was, "Why are you telling me this now?" Ethan Vance, the successful young man in the suit, leaned back against the leather seat. I could hear the faint rustle of his expensive fabric. He sounded calmer now, almost relieved. He had dropped the bomb and was now watching the fallout. "Because I had to," he said simply. "I recognized you. I saw your picture on the app when I requested the ride. The grey hair, the glasses. I recognized the weariness in your face, even in a small profile photo. And I thought, this is it. This is the universe giving me a chance to close a loop that's been open for 10 years. I didn't offer him absolution. I didn't offer him anything. I was drowning in the sudden, sharp recollection of that decade-old trauma. I drove on, silently, mechanically, weaving through the congested lanes. Every muscle in my body was tense, coiled. I was the invisible driver, but now I felt exposed, vulnerable, and dangerously close to losing control. The impulse to pull over, to confront him, to demand an impossible restitution was almost overwhelming. But 40 years of professional detachment held the leash tight. I was on the clock. I was his driver. He seemed to sense my internal battle, the storm raging behind the polite veneer of the job. He decided to continue, filling the silence with his confession. peeling back the layers of his current success to reveal the rotten core of his past. "We were drunk, Mr. What was your name again? I should know it." "Frank," I supplied automatically, the sound hollow in the confined space. "Frank. We were drunk, Frank. Stupid, entitled kids thinking we were untouchable. We saw Eleanor walking alone. My friend Mark dared me. Just a dare. He said, 'Go get her purse, Ethan. Prove you're not a rich coward.' It was the stupidest, most defining moment of my life." His voice shifted again, this time acquiring a tinge of genuine regret, though whether it was regret for the act or regret for being caught, I couldn't yet tell. He was trying to frame this as youthful indiscretion, but the consequences weren't juvenile. We got maybe $50 in cash. And those little things, the things you mentioned, the sentimental stuff, we didn't even look at the jewelry. "Mark just threw the whole lot into a dumpster half a block from where you picked me up," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper on the last sentence. "The dumpster," I echoed, the pain suddenly sharper than the anger. All that grief, all the endless, futile searching Eleanor and I did, the heartache over a few pieces of metal tossed away like garbage. Yes, a green industrial dumpster near the stadium parking lot. I ran, Frank. I ran until my lungs burned. I hailed your cab, a beat-up Ford at the time. I remember you asking, "Where to, son?" And I just screamed, "Anywhere, away from here." You took me 5 towns over. You didn't ask any questions, you just drove. And when I paid you, you just gave me that quiet look and said, "Be careful, kid." You had no idea who you were carrying. He paused, letting the weight of the moment settle again. The raw, escalating tension in the car was now almost unbearable, a physical presence pressing down on us both. I felt a confusing mix of fury and morbid fascination. Part of me, the old, tired driver, wanted the story to end, wanted him out of the car. But another part, the grieving husband, needed to hear every ugly, minute detail. The need for closure, even a poisonous one, was overriding the anger. I became a successful businessman, Frank. I got clean, went to the best schools. I make more money in a week now than that purse had in it. But every time I make a big deal, every time I sign a contract, I see your wife's face, and I remember that night. It's the stain I can't wash out. It's why I needed to tell you. He was offering a justification, a plea for understanding. But all I could focus on was the description of the dumpster, the location. It was a detail I hadn't known, a clue 10 years too late, but a clue nonetheless. A sudden, dangerous idea sparked in my mind, a reckless flame in the darkness. The detail about the dumpster near the stadium parking lot was a shard of glass in the mud. 10 years. 10 years of accepting the finality of the loss, the emotional devastation, and now a precise geographic point where those last fragments of Eleanor's past life were carelessly tossed. The revelation didn't bring closure. It brought a horrifying, paralyzing regret that I hadn't been faster, smarter, or more present that night. I drove on, the silence stretching taut again, only broken by the low hum of the car and the navigation system's calm, detached instructions. The city traffic had begun to thin out as we approached the exit ramp for the bridge. My mind was racing, trying to reconcile the young criminal with the polished businessman sitting behind me. The emotional intensity was still peaking, demanding a resolution. I knew instinctively that this wasn't a ride, it was a reckoning. "You've carried this for 10 years, I stated, my voice steadier this time, controlled by the sheer effort of keeping my composure. I wanted to draw him out, to understand the dimensions of his guilt. "Every day," Ethan Vance confirmed, his voice now lower, more weighted with the confession. "Every morning when I put on this suit and look in the mirror, I see that kid, the successful facade. It's built on a foundation of cheap, drunken criminality. I'm a high flyer, Frank, but my roots are in a gutter." He was self-aware. That was the most unsettling part. He wasn't some sociopath trying to gloat. He was a man clearly burdened by his past, and I was the unwitting recipient of his desperate need for penance. The rising action of the narrative shifted from external threat to internal moral wrestling. "You said you recognized my wife. You saw her face?" I pressed, the question coming out sharper than I intended. The memory of Eleanor, small and startled, collapsing into my arms that night, was too vivid. A visible shudder ran through the reflection in the mirror. We were waiting, hiding near the gate. She was walking to her car, holding her purse close. She was smiling, Frank. She looked genuinely happy. Then Mark grabbed the strap. She screamed, a sound that still echoes in my mind, and then she just collapsed. Not physically, but her eyes, they went dead, like the light went out. That's what I remember most, the light leaving her eyes. He paused, clearly struggling with the recollection. We were laughing as we ran, the adrenaline, the drunkenness. But when I saw her face, just for a second, when I pushed her slightly to get the bag, that image stuck. That look of betrayal, not just by us, but by the whole idea of safety in the world. I still see her when I'm alone in the dark. His words, brutal and unsparing, struck me like physical blows. He had articulated the very thing Eleanor and I had struggled to name, the loss of safety, the crushing sense of betrayal by a cruel universe. The material objects were irrelevant compared to the light he extinguished. My anger, which had been a raging fire, began to coalesce into a cold, hard resentment. "And Mark, your friend?" I asked, keeping my tone level. I needed to know the full scope of the players involved. "Mark died 5 years ago. Car accident, drunk driving. A predictable end, maybe. But I'm still here. I got the second chance he didn't. And I've used it, but the guilt, it poisons the success," Ethan confessed, the admission heavy. "The money doesn't buy peace, Frank. It just buys fancier clothes to cover the shame." He was telling me this, his victim, as a form of self-flagellation. He expected me to be the priest, the confessor, to grant him some kind of absolution simply by listening. But I was not a priest. I was a driver, and now, a judge. "So what do you want from me, Ethan?" I finally asked, pulling onto the off-ramp toward his affluent neighborhood. The houses here were large, set back from the road, symbols of the life he had built on the wreckage of my wife's peace. A blessing, a handshake, a clean slate. He was quiet for a long moment, the first time he seemed to falter since the confession began. "I want you to take the money, Frank. Not the $50. I want to pay for the decade of pain. I want to replace the jewels, the locket, everything. I know it's not the same, but I have to try. I need to make some kind of restitution, however symbolic. I need you to know that the Ethan Vance in the suit is trying desperately to undo the damage of the kid you drove 10 years ago. He was offering a bribe, perhaps, but it felt more like a desperate, flawed attempt at redemption. The emotional stakes were now impossibly high. Could I take his money? Could I forgive him? The question of justice versus mercy, of bitterness versus the possibility of peace, hammered in my tired brain. The journey was nearly over, but the moral crisis had just begun. I could feel the crescendo building, demanding a final, impossible choice. We were deep in the labyrinth of manicured lawns and silent, sprawling houses. The GPS was chirping the final instructions, urging me to turn left onto Oak Ridge Drive. The atmosphere in the car was thick with unspoken possibilities. Ethan Vance had offered money, a common balm for uncommon pain, the standard currency of atonement in this affluent world he inhabited. But money couldn't put the light back in Eleanor's eyes. It couldn't retrieve the moments of peace that were stolen, replaced by anxiety and doubt. I finally spoke, my voice low and gravelly, carrying the weight of the last decade. "The locket, Ethan. It wasn't expensive. It was cheap metal, honestly, but it was Eleanor's mother's, her last memory of her, held close. When you took that, you took more than a possession. You took a piece of history, a comfort." I let the image settle. I didn't want him to think this was just about insurance claims and financial loss. This was about sanctity, about the cruel violation of something sacred. The emotional tension was now moving into the realm of shared, painful understanding, forcing Ethan to confront the true cost of his action. "I understand that, Frank." "Believe me, I do," he insisted, his voice heavy with sincerity. "That's why I need to do this. That's why I asked. I can't replace the memory, but I can honor the loss. Tell me how much you need. I'll write a check right now." I pulled up to a large, imposing house, his destination. I kept the engine running. The meter had stopped, but the conversation clearly hadn't. This was the moment of decision, the crossroads between professional silence and personal justice. The invisible driver had to become visible. I turned slightly, just enough to look at his reflection in the mirror without seeming confrontational. I looked at the tailored suit, the confident bearing, the nervous energy that betrayed the facade. "I won't take your money, Ethan," I said, and I watched his face fall, his shoulders slump in what looked like genuine despair. He was hoping for an easy transaction, money for a clear conscience. I wasn't going to give him that. Not as a payment, not as a settlement. He sighed deeply. "Then what, Frank? What can I do? Just tell me. I can't leave this car knowing I've ripped open an old wound and offered nothing but hollow words." I hesitated, then threw my long-shot idea into the air. It was reckless, potentially humiliating, but the image of the green industrial dumpster was still burning in my mind. The dumpster of discarded hope. You remember the location? The dumpster you threw it in. "The parking lot, near the stadium," I stated, my voice gaining an edge of steely determination. "You said it was 10 years ago, but you were precise about the spot. You remember the place clearly." "Yes, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was the only way I could make the moment stop, by tossing the evidence." "Why?" "Because that locket," I said, leaning back and resting my hands on the wheel, my gaze fixed intensely on his reflection. "That locket might still be there. Or the garbage was hauled to a specific landfill. Trash doesn't just disappear, it's categorized, it's logged. If you have the resources, the money, the connections that you claim you do, you can find the paper trail." He stared at me, his eyes widening slightly. The absurdity of the request seemed to hit him, but also the strange, desperate hope in it. He looked from the rearview mirror to the back of my head, processing the immense, near impossible task I was setting before him. "You want me to search a landfill for a cheap locket?" he asked, disbelief warring with a flicker of excitement. "I want you to try to retrieve what truly matters. I want you to use your influence, your success, to try and fix the one thing that money can't buy back. If you want true penance, Ethan, this is it. Find the locket. If you find it, you can pay me whatever you want. If you don't, then your guilt stays right where it is." The challenge was laid out. It was a test of his redemption. The emotional needle stabilized at a level of intense, focused purpose. He was no longer just a guilty passenger. He was now the reluctant participant in an insane, decade-late scavenger hunt for a piece of my wife's soul. He was quiet, thinking. I could almost hear the calculation running in his head. The logistics, the cost, the sheer ridiculousness of the endeavor. Then he straightened up in the seat. The suit, the confidence, the sharp energy. It all returned. But now it was directed toward a singular, almost impossible mission. "I'll do it, Frank," he said, his voice firm. "I'll use every contact, every dime, and every resource I have. I will track down that garbage route. Give me your phone number, and tell me what I'm looking for exactly." The challenge was accepted. The invisible lines of the driver-passenger relationship had dissolved entirely, replaced by a strange, involuntary partnership forged in guilt and old pain. Ethan Vance was no longer just a fare. He was now the instrument of a deeply improbable atonement. I pulled out my old flip phone, a dinosaur in the age of sleek smartphones, and dictated my number to him. He typed it quickly into his own device, a movement so habitual, so effortless, that it highlighted the chasm between our two lives. "You need to know what you're looking for," I began, my voice softening as I described the object that had tormented us for so long. It was a small, round locket. Not gold, maybe plated brass. Very old. It was engraved. A simple, almost faded script on the back. "Always love, M to E." Inside, it held two tiny, fragile photographs. One of Eleanor's mother, taken on her wedding day. The other of Eleanor herself, as a child, missing a front tooth and laughing. I paused, swallowing the sudden lump in my throat. Describing the locket felt like reliving the loss all over again. Only this time, I was sharing the burden with the man who caused it. The emotional pressure was slowly transitioning from sharp, shocking anger to a deep, weary focus. "And the wedding band," I added, my gaze drifting to my own left hand, still wearing my plain gold band. It was thin, Simple gold, nothing fancy. She wore it next to her diamond, which you boys left behind because it wasn't easy to snatch. But she couldn't wear the diamond after that night. Too much fear, too much pain. She only wore the simple band for a while, and now she wears neither. Ethan was silent, listening intently. His expression in the mirror was one of profound seriousness, the flippancy of the young, wealthy businessman completely gone. He was seeing the true human cost of his action, not just in abstract regret, but in the specific details of a life he damaged. The green industrial dumpster near the south corner of the stadium parking lot, he repeated, cementing the geographical coordinates in his mind. And the date was a Friday night, October, 10 years ago after the Roosevelt High game. That should narrow down the hauler and the landfill log. I'll start first thing tomorrow morning. I have contacts in waste management, legal teams. They owe me favors. I'll use every single one. He was all action now, all efficiency. The guilt that had festered in him was finally channeled into a productive, albeit Herculean task. This was his penance. "Why me, Frank?" he suddenly asked, catching my eye in the mirror. "Why not the police? Why not expose me now? I'm right here. I'm a sitting target." I sighed, turning off the ignition. The gentle tick of the cooling engine filled the air. We were at his destination, but this conversation felt like it had only just begun. "Because the police can't give Eleanor back the light in her eyes," I told him, the truth ringing with finality. "They can only give you a cage, and me a momentary satisfaction. That doesn't undo the harm. It just multiplies the hurt. Eleanor needs to know that decency still exists, that there's a way for broken things to be mended, even slightly." I leaned towards the back seat, meeting his eyes directly this time, a lifetime of experience radiating from my tired face. "This isn't about vengeance, Ethan. This is about peace. Your successful life is a testament to the fact that people can change. If you can use that change, that success, to bring back that small piece of comfort, maybe we both get a chance at true closure. Maybe that proves that the 10 years of guilt you carried and the 10 years of sadness we carried weren't entirely meaningless." My words hung in the air, a final plea for humanity and redemption. I was giving him a pathway to forgive himself, but only by actively fighting the consequences of his younger self. It was a massive emotional risk, putting my faith in a reformed thief, but I felt a strange, quiet conviction. The emotional needle had settled on a profound, shared sense of precarious hope. He reached into his briefcase and pulled out a business card, a thick, expensive stock with a gold-embossed logo. He handed it forward to me. "I'm good for this, Frank, I swear it. If it takes me a year, I will find that locket. You will hear from me. Thank you for the assignment." The finality of the moment settled over us. Ethan Vance opened the car door. The crisp, clean air of the affluent neighborhood rushed into the stale cab, a sudden, jarring contrast to the heavy, emotional atmosphere we had shared. He didn't linger. He didn't offer a final handshake or a platitude. He simply gave me a look that was a complex mix of fear, determination, and profound relief, and then stepped out. The door shut with a solid, echoing thud. I watched in the rearview mirror as he walked towards the imposing front door of his home, the expensive suit a symbol of his current success, and now, the uniform for his penance. He hadn't paid the fare. I didn't remind him. The cost of this ride was far greater than any meter could calculate. I pulled away from the curb slowly, the silence in the car vast and echoing, a stark difference from the crushing tension of the last hour. Driving away, I felt an overwhelming weariness, but it was a different kind of tired. It wasn't the fatigue that comes from endless hours on the road. It was the exhaustion that follows a major emotional confrontation, a crisis survived. I gripped the steering wheel, running my thumb over the thin, expensive business card Ethan had given me. Ethan Vance, CEO. The title was pretentious, but the man behind it was now deeply vulnerable, tasked with an assignment he could easily fail, an assignment he desperately needed to complete. I returned to my usual route, gliding back through the streets, but the world looked different. Every car, every pedestrian, every neon sign seemed to carry a hidden story, a deep, buried secret. I had spent 40 years being invisible, a witness to the human comedy and tragedy. But today, I had been thrust into the center of the drama. I was no longer just the driver, I was part of the plot. I thought about Eleanor. How could I tell her? How could I explain that the man who had stolen her peace a decade ago was now dedicating his considerable resources to digging through a landfill to find a tarnished keepsake? The confession, the meeting, and the subsequent mission felt too bizarre, too cinematic, to be real life. Eleanor had finally, painfully moved past the bitterness. She had accepted that the locket was gone forever. Introducing this new, fragile hope could either heal the deepest wound or shatter her fragile peace entirely. The moral calculus was dizzying. I hadn't forgiven him, not yet. Forgiveness felt like a grand, impossible leap, a theological concept too heavy for an old taxi driver. But I had given him a chance at redemption, which was perhaps a more practical and difficult form of grace. True forgiveness wasn't about erasing the past. It was about accepting the future without the bitterness of the past poisoning it. And the possibility of the locket's return, however remote, was the only antidote I could offer Eleanor and myself. I drove until the streetlights began to take over from the fading twilight. I pulled into my usual spot, turned off the ignition, and sat for a long time, just listening to the silence. I took the business card out again and held it. CEO. I ran my fingers over the embossed letters. If he was lying, if this was just an elaborate performance to ease his guilt, I would know. I would feel it. And the anger, the deep, cold resentment would return with a vengeance. But if he was honest, if the burden of 10 years of guilt was truly crushing him, then he would call. He would use every connection. He would tear apart that landfill piece by piece. The next chapter of our lives, mine and Eleanor's, and even Ethan Vance's, depended on a 10-year-old garbage route. The city, which once seemed predictable and finite, suddenly felt vast and full of unpredictable possibilities. I finally got out of the car, the stiffness in my old joints a physical testament to the tension of the ride. I locked the doors and started walking toward my apartment, but I kept looking back at the car. It sat there, a regular sedan on a regular street, but I knew better. It wasn't just a car. It was a confessional, a time machine, and now a silent, tense waiting room. I knew my phone would ring eventually. The invisible driver had finally seen something he couldn't unsee, and now he had to wait to see if the world could be put right.